Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavai Tejasvinavadijamastu Mavid Vishavai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman protect us, may he guide us and give us strength and right understanding. May love and harmony be with us all. Om peace, peace, peace. And good evening and happy beginning of May. We are reading from the complete works of Swami Ramakrishnananda, one of Sri Ramakrishna's direct disciples, and we are in the first volume of his collected works, reading the section called Determination of Conscious Tendencies. We're not too far into this chapter, but basically he talked about how all living things have a certain level of consciousness, some sort of a soul, if you want to call it that, and that they all have certain likes and dislikes, and so we're going to get into that now. Now, if we want to determine the nature of a certain animal, we do it by studying its likes and dislikes. Whatever it likes, we know is natural to it, and whatever it dislikes, we know is unnatural to it. To find out our own nature is not therefore very difficult. What do we like most? We like happiness most, and therefore to be happy is our nature. We like knowledge most, and therefore to be all-knowing is our nature. We like life most, and therefore to live is our nature, and not to die. By studying our nature in this way, our old forefathers found out the true nature of the soul. Because the soul likes to be and never not to be, being, or sat, is its nature. Because its nature is to be all-knowing, it is called chit. Because happiness is its nature, it is therefore called Ananda. Thus it has been called Satchidananda. It is found not only in human beings, but also in other animals and even in the trees and plants. And so we have been taught by our great teachers, such as Sri Krishna and others, quote, God is living in the heart of all living beings, and it is he who is determining all their movements, unquote. And if that universal soul is in lower animals, as well as in the trees and plants, their nature and human nature must be essentially the same. Wherever there is any conscious movement of any sort in the animal and in the vegetable kingdom, every such movement is either to get happiness or to acquire knowledge or to save life. But we are apt to arrogate to ourselves all consciousness and all knowledge, and we regard the lower animals to have only some instincts. If you study their nature, we shall be able to find out for ourselves that it does not differ essentially from our nature. And of course, even plants, some plants like shade, some plants like sun, some plants like a nice cold winter to rest, and others don't like cold winters to rest. So plants have various likes and dislikes too, just like we do. And in order to survive, they have to seek out water and they have to seek out nutrients in the soil. If the soil is low in nutrients, it's not going to thrive. It's going to send its roots out, and perhaps it can find better nutrients deeper down, or it can find better sources of water. We can see that the roots know where the water is, and the roots go towards the water. So the plants have this ability to know how to get what it is they want. And if it's impossible to get, they don't thrive and they may die. And similarly with animals. And of course, almost everybody has had a pet at some point in time in their life. And so you've noticed that they can be very picky when it comes to what they want to eat, or they might be very eager to eat just about anything, and you have to keep them from eating things that they're not supposed to eat. They might be wanting to eat your philodendrons or something of that nature. So different animals have different kinds of tendencies. Even among the same species, you can find some differences. We've had dogs when I was a kid, and most of them liked the water, but there was one that didn't like the water at all. He was quite afraid of the water. So again, there's probably some indication that there are some samskaras there in these animals that causes them to have these fears or likes. So now he's going to talk about ants. Perhaps you had an ant farm when you were a kid. You did? Yeah, I did too. Except that the black ants from the outside attacked the red ants on the inside. It's an ant-eat ant world out there. The little ant is moving in hunger before me. Why? Perhaps it wants a grain of sugar that will make it happy. And so it is searching for it. It goes and catches hold of a certain thing, thinking it to be the much longed for particle, but finding it to be something else on examination, gives it up and goes to another place. In this way, it goes from one place to another, till at last it comes to the thing it wants, that little particle of sugar. The same thing is being done by a great yogi when he tries to realize his highest ideal, which he regards to be all blissful. The little ant here is trying to get that little particle of sugar, the source of all bliss to it, rejecting many other particles which are not sugar. This is the process of neti neti, or not this, etc. I do not want anything else but the object of my desire. The yogi in the mountain cave is also trying to fix his mind on that all-pervading soul. He also says in his mind, let no other idea come to disturb me than the one ideal which I am trying to realize. And in this way, he is constantly struggling to realize it. The process is the same. Ananda, or bliss, is the only one thing which determines all our movements. If you try to injure the ant, it runs away because it wants to live and be as happy as you. Now, in order to save its life and to make itself happy, it must have knowledge sufficient to distinguish happiness from unhappiness, life from death. So knowledge, bliss, and being go hand in hand, but the primary thing is bliss. For this, we human beings, along with other living beings, are struggling. And out of such struggles, we have evolved all our sciences, with the help of which we are able to minimize the power of misery. So we have seen that the same hankering after eternal bliss is actuating the movement of an ant. Nay, it is actuating the movement of plants, too. The plant loves sunshine, and it spreads its branches towards it in the direction of the light. A certain Western scholar of experimental psychology has lately found out that the plants also have the power to understand us when we praise or find fault with them. This psychologist had 2 plants very near his room, and every day he used to bless one certain plant and curse the other. He found out after a month that the plant he used to bless was growing lustily, whereas the plant he used to curse did not grow properly. You did, yeah. So we have corroboration.
The snails came along and ate the one that I was cursing.
Ah. So you've wished it. Yeah. You blessed the snails and cursed the plant. Huh? So we see that the power of understanding is also there. The plants know how to feel happy as well as unhappy. In the course of his teachings about the transcendental nature of the soul, Sat, the sage Aruni tells his son Swetaketu, pointing out a tree before him, quote, if my boy, anyone slightly injures that big tree before us by an axe or something else at the root or in the middle or at the top, it will live and not die, but shed tear-like drops of juice. You should know from this that it is pervaded all over by the soul and lives happily, drinking in profusion the life-giving water from the earth. If that soul comes away from one of its branches, it dries up. If from another, that too dries up. If from a third, that also dries up. And if from the whole tree dries up. Thus, you should know the tree to be conscious and living. That's from the Chandogya Upanishad. Happiness always makes us expand ourselves, whereas unhappiness or misery makes us contract, as it were. So basically, he's going through this same idea that we've repeated before, where our true nature is infinite, undivided, and unchanging. And since our true nature is really infinite, we want to be free. Since our true nature is undivided, we want to be loved, and we want to love. And since our true nature is unchanging, we want to be peaceful. That's another way of looking at it. Or you can look at it from the standpoint of Satchidananda, the way he did. And so in either case, you get some basic tendencies in this world and why we do what we do. Of course, in the realm of Maya, things tend to get frustrated. And the more you get of one of those things, you tend to get less of some of the others. And so you have to lose some of your freedom in order to pursue getting some of these other things. So this is the paradox of Maya. And of course, Maya also confounds even things like the ant. And so we can put out something like an ant bait that it thinks is nice and sweet, but it actually has stuff in it that it's toxic to it. And instead of being nourished, it ends up being poisoned. So this is the paradox of Maya. Maya can fool us into thinking that something is something we want, and it turns out not to be. And of course, in general, that's true, even in the normal sense. We think we want all of the different things in the world, but those things don't give us permanent happiness, permanent bliss, permanent peace, or permanent knowledge. They're all temporary and limited. So we can pursue education and get very happy that we've gotten a degree. We might learn another language. We might get another PhD or something and pile PhDs on PhDs, piled higher and deeper. But all knowledge is really in the soul. It is knowing your true self. That's where all knowledge really resides. And of course, you enjoy eating, but you can't eat all the time, or then you'll be so fat you can't move, and you won't be able to go eat anywhere. So you see the difficulty. It is indeed a paradox to say that renunciation determines all our tendencies. Men greatly fear to renounce. They grasp firmly everything that they happen to possess. Renunciation is regarded as the exclusive duty of a sannyasin. A householder should not have anything to do with renunciation. But I tell you that it is the only thing which determines the movement of all living beings throughout the universe. We must have to renounce that which cannot give us happiness anymore in order to get something which makes us happy. And again, even in the ordinary sense, we do that all the time. Instead of going out to party in the evening, you stayed home and studied in order to get your education. And in order to eat, you had to forego buying something else. So all of these things, even in the ordinary sense, we have to renounce one thing to get something else. And of course, the ultimate renunciation is to realize that all these things in Maya are not going to fulfill you, and you need to pursue a spiritual life in full. We must have to renounce that which cannot give us happiness anymore in order to get something which makes us happy. And of course, we also experience that during the course of our life. We might have enjoyed playing with certain toys when we were little kids, But you had to make room in your closet for other toys. So you had to get rid of those old toys that you enjoyed when you were 6 or 7. Now that you're 12 or 13, you got a bunch of other toys you want. So same idea. Everywhere, whether it's the vegetable or the animal kingdom, the law is the same. One thing in connection with this idea of renunciation is that it is regarded as very difficult and undesirable by most people. For when they look at a sannyasin with his shaven head going from house to house to get his meals, and when they see that he has nothing to call his own, that he finds his house in a chatram, that's a word for a hotel, not a chat room, but a chatram, or under a tree, and that some of us find a house in a chat room, don't we? Or under a tree, and that he looked upon with hatred and pity by most of the well-to-do people. The ordinary man of the world cannot help regarding such a life to be very undesirable, nay, fearful. That the sannyasin does not put on good clothes, does not get good food, nay, sometimes he has to starve and thus lead a very wretched sort of life, are facts which very few can relish. Every man has a desire for enjoyment. If you have a certain amount of money, say 10 rupees in your hand, and I ask you to throw it away, you would not do it because money makes you happy. But if I assure you by saying, I will give you 20 rupees if you do so, you will at once obey me, for by doing so, you will get twice as much enjoyment as the amount in your hand can give you. This is exactly what every one does when he renounces, be he a householder or a sannyasin. People do that when they go and buy a lottery ticket or invest in anything that they think might bring them greater money. And that's not even a sure thing at all. It's a very tenuous thing. No one has a guarantee, but people renounce all sorts of money in the hopes of getting more money. In the Chandogya Upanishad again, Bhagavan Sanat Kumara is exhorting Narada in this way, quote, that which is vast and limitless is the source of all bliss. There is no bliss in what is limited and little. The infinite one alone is bliss. Try to realize it, unquote. If you want to realize the highest knowledge, you must give up this little knowledge of yours, which is another name for ignorance. We are not disposed to give up the little to accomplish a higher end, overmastered as we are by the nameless power of Maya, which has the power to delude even God himself. We find it narrated in the Kalika Purana that when God incarnated as a boar, he lifted the earth from the nether worlds and thus made the earth fit for human habitation. After this grand achievement, he did not want to give up his boar body and had a sow for his wife. He had many children born of her, and so did he forget his own infinite and all blissful nature due to engrossment in worldly life, that he never cared to go back to it for several years. At this time, all the gods did not know what to do. None but God himself has the power to rule over his creation, and even he, forgetting himself, was leading this life of a boar. Nor could these gods approach and ask him to give up that wretched body, for what animal would ever want to die, and who amongst all the minor gods would be powerful enough to take the boar's body away from the all-powerful Lord of the universe? So Shiva had to come and kill the boar with his trident after an arduous fight. That is why God, in his incarnation of Sri Krishna, says, quote, this divine and all-powerful Maya of mine, no one can cross over, unquote. She represents the infinite power of the Lord, and so makes the real appear as unreal, and the unreal as real. Pleasure appearing as pain, and pain as pleasure. Light appears as darkness, and darkness as light, and thus ties everyone to falsehood, making him completely forget the truth. In order to make ourselves more happy, more wise, we have to give up our old ways. Blessed are they who can thus give up, for by such renunciation alone, a person can aspire to raise to a higher level. And of course, this can be done gradually in degrees. We have to learn to delay our gratification. And that's, of course, what you do when you go to college or something like that. You're delaying gratification by spending a lot of time studying so that you can get a better job and enjoy more things in the world rather than just frittering away your time and enjoying life and then finding that you don't have anything to show for it. But the ultimate delaying of gratification, you could say, is to not enjoy the things that Maya puts in front of you to entice you away from your goal and to pursue a spiritual life. We have seen that we have lost sight of our real nature in the darkness of ignorance. This real nature is called Satchidananda, as every struggle, physical or mental, is intended to make us more expansive and more exalted. Blessed is he who struggles. Laziness is that sleep which keeps us immersed in the utter gloom of ignorance, and when a man has been able to shake it off and has learned to struggle with his environment, he is a true fighter. He wants to fight out his cause so that he may recover the lost castle of his glory, where alone he can expect to have all his ideals realized. Thus he goes on struggling. He wants to live, but finds there is no life, for death is waiting for him. He does not like the idea at all, and so struggles to avoid death with little or no success. He wants to know. The more he wants to have knowledge, the more he finds it impossible to realize it. His power is limited, and the things he wants to know are innumerable, and his life is too short for it. Still, there is an infinite hankering after knowledge and life, and he himself is not able to find a way out of this labyrinth of births and deaths. And of course, that's the idea behind reincarnation. We go through a life, we get some of our desires satisfied, but there are just so many other desires, and so we have to be reborn again, and we take a life that allows us to pursue other things in life that we might want to enjoy. And then we also have to learn more lessons, and so we have to come back in certain circumstances. We might even pick difficult circumstances in order to learn difficult lessons. And so on it goes. It's not necessarily done in one life. It's a very, very difficult thing to do, to put all wants aside and just pursue spiritual life. And so this process goes on from life to life until we've kind of exhausted it. It's you've tried like the labyrinth. Better a maze, I think, would be a better example. Labyrinths, there's just one way. It feels like you're going back and forth, but if you just keep going, there's no getting stuck. But a maze, of course, you can keep hitting dead ends. And so life after life, we run into various dead ends, and we keep thinking we're going to find a way out, and eventually there is a way out. And so eventually, through many, many lifetimes, we find that way out of this maze of births and deaths and the maze of Maya that has all these, it's like a fun house with all these mirrors in it, and you think the path goes this way, but that's just the mirror showing it's this way, and it's really that way. And so you keep bumping into things and trying things out, and eventually you find the way out is to simply pursue spiritual life. This was exactly the state of mind Arjuna found himself in when, of his own accord, he placed himself entirely under the guidance of his friend and teacher, Sri Krishna, saying, quote, "I do not know how to guide myself. I take refuge at thy feet. Regard me as thy disciple. Please direct me as thou wilt." Unquote. This becomes the attitude of every person's mind after they have struggled in vain for several lives to realize the goal. Then one earnestly searches for a true teacher and to great satisfaction, finds out that that teacher is also waiting. It is the fact that whenever there is a feeling of want in any man, there is a corresponding object to satisfy it in the world outside of him. If there is a hunger here, there is food there ready for you. If there is thirst, there is water. Thus, for any particular want of yours, the external world contains a corresponding object for its removal. When you find that it is not possible for you to guide yourself without the help of a teacher, you find that the teacher is also waiting for you. Now, this teacher is none other than the Lord of the universe himself in human form. That is why he has been thus described in the scriptures, quote, "The true teacher or guru is Brahma the creator, Vishnu the preserver, and Shiva the destroyer. He is verily the unmanifested infinite one, or Parabrahman. Therefore we should always be perfectly devoted to him." So, Guru is none else than God himself. That is the way Sri Krishna teaches us in the Gita. Quote, "Whenever you want to know what you should do and what you should not, refer to the scriptures." Unquote. The scriptures of the Vedas are God's own words intended for the guidance of humanity. If by God we understand the all-pervading being of infinite wisdom, he is the only being who can be infallible, and so the Vedas have come out of him as naturally and spontaneously as breath comes out of us. And this can be the only reliable books that can guide us rightly. And of course, ultimately, the guru in the form of an avatar is a physical manifestation of Brahman, which is the same as your Atman, which is your inner guru. So you have an inner guru, but we don't listen to the inner guru very much. It's like Alice in Wonderland. She would say, "I give myself very good advice, but I very rarely follow it." So you finally give up and go to a teacher, which is the manifestation of the inner guru in the external form, and they tell you what it is you need to do. And hopefully we listen. By the scriptures, we do not mean only the Hindu scriptures that go by the name of the Vedas, but the scriptures of the Buddhists, the Parsi, the Jains, the Jews, the Christians, the Muslims, etc., each of which is believed by its votaries to be infallible, coming directly or indirectly from God himself. In fact, if we make a comparative study of all the scriptures of the world, we find that they do not essentially differ in their teachings. The same promise to confer the highest bliss on all people is to be found in all of them. The same renunciation of the little, the limited, has been preached in all of them in order that one may realize the vast and limitless. They are indeed some minor differences on account of the different tendencies and capacities of people, which demand for each individual a particular method of procedure. But every such method is intended to bring the highest bliss to each and every one of them. Now, one way I like to look at the different religions is that they all have ways of trying to reduce your ego sense and to increase your remembrance of God in some way. So, for example, the Jews take the attitude that they're the chosen people and they were given the laws, and these laws are things they're supposed to follow. So what happens? Every time you follow one of these laws, you remember God. God gave me this law, and so that's why I'm following it. The Christians believe Christ died for their sins, and so you are going to remember Christ all the time because he made the ultimate sacrifice for you. So however you do it, it's a way of remembering God. And of course, you can look at all the different yogas in the same way. Bhakti yoga, you use your emotion of love, a very powerful emotion, to always remember God. In meditation, you still the waves of the mind so that you see your true nature deep down inside of you. In Jnana Yoga, you're always reaffirming the truth of your true nature and the ephemeral, temporary, and somewhat illusory nature of the world of Maya. And in Karma Yoga, you always dedicate all of your actions either to serving God in other beings or to serve your Ishta, or there's several ways to look at it. So you focus on one of these yogas and you find yourself remembering God more and more and reducing your sense of ego. But indeed, I think if you study all the scriptures, you find a lot of people would say there are a lot of differences. They're not so minor. But he's being very kind and saying that the differences are minor. But if you take them literally, you find that they can differ quite a bit. But you can't take them so literally. You have to take them more metaphorically and also take them in the context of the times and the people to whom they were being given. And so you really have to look at the context. There are various sorts of food to satisfy the tastes. Oh, I think I skipped a line. Thus, the goal is the same, and the more an individual goes near it, the more he finds that the differences are gradually vanishing away. Just as food satisfies the hunger of the body, religion satisfies the hunger of the soul. There are various sorts of food to satisfy the tastes of various men and women all over the world, and a food that may give immense satisfaction to a certain man may be looked upon with horror by another. As the animal food which gives perfect satisfaction to millions of men is looked upon with horror by a strict vegetarian, but all foods, whether animal or vegetable, whether cooked in one way or another, serve but one purpose, the satisfaction of hunger, and consequent rest for the whole body. The chemical composition of all foodstuffs, however different they may be, in appearance, in taste, in smell, in flavor, etc., must be the same, otherwise they cannot serve the same purpose. Hence, although they apparently differ essentially, they do not. Exactly the same is the case with all the different religions of the world. Essentially, they do not differ. Otherwise, how can they serve the same purpose of bringing peace and bliss to all souls? You know, it's interesting that things that we can eat as food, like dogs and cats, don't necessarily, or they can't eat. For example, I think chocolate is toxic to cats, and grapes are toxic to dogs, and very peculiar things that you just wouldn't think should be any problem with, and yet they are not food for those other animals. And so, indeed, different animals have to have different kinds of food, and different people need to have different kinds of foods. We come from genetic lines that grew up in very different kinds of environments where different kinds of foods were available, and that probably has something to do with it.
Swamiji, they're all hydrocarbons.
All right. Yeah, so is petroleum. All right. Let's see. Again, just as some men who can digest and assimilate some particular sort of food which they have learned to take from their parents, they have inherited from them, and thus have been able to take from their babyhood, can neither relish nor assimilate any other sort of food. Similarly, some souls can only assimilate and thus be benefited by a particular sort of religion, which they have inherited from their ancestors, and not by any other. So it is not desirable that anyone should give up his ancestral religion, which is natural to him, and embrace another, as thereby he would be placing himself in a wrong path, a path which, being unnatural to him, will not be suited for him to follow with ease and success. Therefore, religions which have come from God for the guidance of humanity are the only right paths to be followed, paths which alone can bring the greatest amount of happiness here as well as hereafter. But I would add that in this day and age, many of us come in with some scars from other lifetimes where we perhaps had a different religion. And I think the energy of the age is for more and more people to realize that they don't have to stick to the religion of their forefathers, that they can choose from the religions of the world to find the one that best suits them. And one of those may have been one that they started to follow in a past life of some sort. And so we certainly don't need to feel that we have to be stuck in the religion of an ancestor just because it was what they did, especially if you see difficulties with it. It may not suit you. You're not your parents. You're yourself, and you've come in with your own set of some scars. And so you have to find the path which suits you. And that sometimes is interesting. Sometimes we've seen incidences where, of course, people come to Vedanta and they find that their parents then find it interesting too, and they become devotees. And other times, the parents just never can accept it, and so there's kind of a split in the family. But either way, that's just because of the various samskaras of the different people. So I wouldn't take that particular passage too literally. Now he's going on to a different topic, morality. Morality is based upon human experience. I must be kind towards you if I want you to be kind towards me. For I learn by experience that kindness, love, honesty, hatred, malice, etc. are all reciprocal. Man is an image of his brother man, reflected as it were in the mirror of creation. If you make faces standing before a mirror, the image will do the same. If you smile or weep, the image will also smile or weep. If I am sweet and kind to you, you are sure to be sweet and kind to me. Kindness or unkindness in me brings forth kindness or unkindness in others. So I should be good, loving, kind, honest, and charitable, etc. If I want, the others should be so towards me. And who is there that does not want to be kindly treated by others? Thus, morality has to deal with this life only, whereas religion is based upon the eternal nature of man, presided over by the one Lord, the one soul of all souls. And of course, the other angle of that is that you treat others in the way you want to be treated because they are you, in a sense. There's only one soul. We are just different temporary manifestations of that one infinite soul. And so ultimately the idea for morality comes from that. A man may be moral, although he may be irreligious and atheistic. In other words, you can follow this kind of moral code even if you don't believe in a particular religion or in a particular or any deity. The irreligious and moral man is a votary of his living organism, only in the little restraint sense for the reasons given above. That is, he finds out that the enjoyment, which is one aim of his life, can be had as long as his body is well preserved. The idea of death horrifies him, and he tries his best to forget it by assigning the cemetery to a distant and unfrequented part of the village or town he lives in. On the other hand, the aspirations of a religious person are not confined to this life alone. The fear of death has not much hold on such a person. They shape the present life in such a way as to make the future life more bright, more charming, and more sweet. That's that delayed gratification I was talking about earlier. That person also does not transcend the idea of being an embodied being, but also expects all enjoyments through the instrumentality of the body. He also is a person of many desires, like the moral man. But while the moral man lives in his little well of life, which is of a very precarious nature, the man of religion sails through the ever-expanding river of life which flows on from time without beginning over a channel having innumerable turns of births and deaths, always taking him to places more and more illumined and bright, more and more peaceful and calm, more and more boundless and emancipating. Thus, the man of religion not only wants to be happy here, but also hereafter, and he finds in his scriptures that he wants to be so. He should please and satisfy the gods by offering them those things that they love most. The gods are not different from the Supreme Being, who is the creator, preserver, and destroyer of the universe. But each of them is the manifested form of one of his innumerable powers. They are not the personifications of his powers. They themselves are persons emanated from him, just as innumerable radii emanate from one center. The limited mind of an ordinary man cannot comprehend the limitless. That is why the limitless one becomes limited, manifested as each one of these gods. So we learn from the Gita, quote, by offering oblations to the gods, glorify and propitiate them, so that thus propitiated they may shower their blessings upon you. Thus, mutually satisfying one another, you shall realize the greatest good. Propitiated by your oblations, the gods will bestow upon you many wished-for enjoyments, and hence the man who, without offering these in grateful acknowledgement to the gods, enjoys them himself, is verily a thief, unquote. So this is one level of religion, one level which is very common in the beginnings of religious life in civilizations, where the various forces of nature are offered to propitiate them in order that the things in the world will go smoothly for our benefit. But ultimately, this is just sort of beginning levels of remembering the gods. Again, so we're remembering that everything comes from the infinite, undivided, unchanging reality, which we've personified as all of these different forces of nature. And so that's at least a step towards remembering God in all of these things and being thankful, because after all, it's very difficult to practice any kind of spiritual life if you're starving to death and unconscious from lack of water and that sort of thing. So you have to have certain basics, and so we want to be thankful to the forces of nature for providing those. Thus, he who wants to be happy here and hereafter must worship the gods. Such a man directs the course of his life not by the dictates of his senses, but by the desires of the Lord himself. He becomes religious with the help of that religion, he is not only able to make himself happy here, but expects a far better source of happiness hereafter. There are various injunctions in the scriptures to enable a person to lead a pure and pious life, by obeying which he acquires great excellence or merit, which is called in Sanskrit punya. With the help of this punya, he, after this life, is exalted to a higher sphere of existence that goes by the name of swarga, or heaven, where misery has no access at any time to break the ceaseless flow of sweet enjoyments, and where everyone gets whatever he desires. But he's going to go on and describing how this doesn't go on forever, and that ultimately one has to give up even the desire for these temporary, pleasurable, heavenly existences. But this is all part of a process. We're going through this process of getting all of these lower desires satisfied so that we can decide that they're not needed anymore. It's just like going through the toys of your childhood, and you enjoyed them while you were a little kid, and then when you got older, you realized you didn't need them anymore. So the same process goes on as the soul gets older and older. Our souls also get older and older. And you can see that. You see that some souls in the universe you can tell they're very young souls, and they've just got all sorts of enjoyments they've got to experience. They've got a bucket list of things that they want to accomplish in life. And a lot of them might seem quite silly to people that have been around the wheel of birth and death a few hundred times more when we've gotten a lot of those things out of the way. And so that's the way it goes through all this cycles of births and deaths, and we get rid of these various toys of the various pleasures of life through these different earlier lives, and we move on and on to higher things. And then ultimately, we might still find, I mean, we wouldn't be embodied if we didn't have some desires, but what you have to do is you have to use kind of the technique of martial arts. You know, martial arts use the energy of your opponent to your advantage. So you take those desires and you twist them so that they are part of your spiritual path. And so we will continue this next time. And the sound bath will be towards the middle of the month this time, but we will have a regular reading next week. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Filled with Brahman are the things we see. Filled with Brahman are the things we see not. From out of Brahman floweth all that is. From Brahman all, yet is it still the same. Om, peace, peace, peace.